Hi, I'm ML Matt Buchman, and welcome to 5 Insider Factoids based on questions that fans have asked me, readers have asked me about Osprey, Miranda Chase number 13. Warning, this video includes lots of spoilers. So let's jump right in. First, I want to talk about the setting and the aircraft. Men with Hill is one of 3 sites in the world that specialize, 3 US sites in the world that specializes in monitoring satellites, our spy satellites and spy satellites of others. So all that information that goes up from cameras, from sensing, from cell phones, everything they can pick up in space gets routed back down to one of 3 places for the US, primarily one of 3 places. One of which is Menwith Hill up in Yorkshire in the UK, one of which is Pine Gap, which is out in the middle of the Australian outback, not far from Alice Springs, and one is Buckley Space Force Base just east of Denver, Colorado. Each of these places, in addition to having 30 or 40 or more radar dish antennas that look up to talk to the satellites, they also have the processing centers and they have the action teams who will actually control uh, things like airstrikes. They'll get it cleared, of course, up through the ranks, but the people who actually pull it off are often sitting at these desks inside of these 3 facilities. And this effort is all part of something called Five Eyes, which is the 5 most trusted by the US allies. And Five Eyes, they share what they see. So it's supposedly anything that isn't US completely isolated gets shared the next tier out to the Five Eyes organization, which is Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, and the US. Then there's +3, which adds France, Japan, and South Korea because they're kind of watching China and Russia. There's 9 Eyes, which adds in Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, and France. 14 Eyes, you get Belgium, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Sweden thrown in. So, but each tier has less information shared. So each of these has a different secrecy classification on, oh, we found out this, so all the Five Eyes know it. We found out this, but we're not going to tell the 5+3, or we're not going to tell the 14. So these are tiers, again, invisible tiers of how the secure operations work for satellite surveillance of these countries trying to keep themselves secure. So that's one piece of the plot of the story. The other piece, oh, and here's a nice picture of Menwith Hill. Um, It's sitting at the edge of the Yorkshire Dales, and each of these radomes has a big dish inside from 5 to 30 meters across, looking up and talking to satellites. And part of the reason of the dome is they're radar transparent, radio transparent, uh, is so that protect the equipment. But that could be done more cheaply. It's also so nobody can see where these dishes are pointing. So if they want to eavesdrop on a Russian satellite, somebody can't sit here on the roadside with a camera and go, oh, they're pointing there, they're following our satellite. Uh, and then you can see the security processing building in the center there. But this is the Osprey. And uh, I chose the Osprey for a couple of reasons. It's in its childhood, it's a very, very unconventional aircraft. It acts like a helicopter with its rotors pointed up, and it acts like an airplane with its rotors pointed forward. The big problem with helicopters is they're dog slow. The fastest helicopter in the world, Chinook, until recently, um, goes just under 200 miles an hour. Whereas airplanes, like the Osprey, when it's in airplane mode, goes up to 300. so it gets there half again as fast. Might even be more than that. Um, and so having something that can transition between the two, they can give you the vertical lift and then the higher speed with good capacity is a really important factor. So they came up with this mixed plane aircraft thing, which is called a tilt rotor, literally because those rotors on the end can tilt. And there's even a picture here of how they fold up so that they don't take up too much room on an aircraft carrier. And go watch a video of that. It's really pretty amazing. The whole thing will do it electronically on its own, um, to take up as little space on the deck as possible. They also, in their early days, fell out of the sky a lot. This was brand new technology, very hard to solve, and they're still having reliability issues. They were really good and solid until just like 3 months before I recorded this, and two of them came out of the sky. And unlike a most things that go wrong in a helicopter, you can auto rotate to land. There are a couple of really catastrophic failures and they just drop out of the sky. Or a plane can, to a fair degree, glide to land. A tilt rotor, the kind of things that go wrong, it doesn't have much wing. You can see the wing is very narrow. So it doesn't glide very well and it doesn't auto rotate at all. So when they get in trouble, they just plummet and kill whoever's aboard. Uh, it's an argument for and against them. However, the key to this book is Miranda's transitions. In the last book, she lost her island. It got burned, and her memories got burned. Her house got burned. Her father's plane got burned. In this book, and her parents died. We found that out in book 1 when she was 13. In this book, her parents die again in a much worse way, in that she discovers that she wasn't the loved child she thought she was. She discovered that the parents didn't know what to do with her, so they just pushed this autistic kid off on um, the nanny, the therapist. So the pressure gets increased on Miranda, and I wanted to see what would happen if we squeezed against that autistic structure of her brain. How is she going to react? What would be an authentic reaction? So when Andy crosses the line and betrays her, and then she finds out her parents basically betrayed her, it's too much. And she just comes apart. And I actually leave her in a fairly dark place at the end of the book where Miranda is trying to hold it together. And the interesting thing is, she's not going to the places that she did in the early books. If you've read the early books, there are times where she just loses it, where she folds up, like on, in Havoc, when everything gets out of control out on the Johnson Atoll, she comes apart and loses it. She doesn't do that here. She crumbles, but she crumbles more as a person. She's found enough of a core because of the influence of the team and the people around her to still hold together. And this is what I ended up having to tell a lot of people about this story was go read the bonus scene, because the bonus scene actually gives you a flicker of light that will eventually get delivered on. But it's a very hard ending, and it was a very hard book to write. And part of it was I had to take Andy sideways. She had to go sideways, and it became a battle of character versus author. I kept trying to not write the scene that way. I kept trying to have Andy not betray Miranda. I kept trying to have Miranda not have to face her past. And every time I tried to force that, the book stalled until finally, after I'd been stalled for weeks, I went down to my wife, who's my brainstorming partner, and I said, okay, this is what's going on. I think Andy has to betray Miranda. And she said, yeah, she does, because of what was set up as the story. It's the thing that will tip her. And so it was a real challenge back and forth to make this work, to make this transition work. And the character actually won out, because you have to stay, as a writer, you have to stay true to the character, where the reader goes, oh yeah. So it's the nature of Andy that she got in over her head. She does this horrid thing because she had started to heal her past with her mother, and then it's her mother's life gets threatened. So she has no time. So she does a knee-jerk reaction to save her mother. She gives up Miranda, and only after she's done it does she realize the travesty she's created, and she can't think of a way out of it, and she freezes. And that's actually the next evolution of Andy's PTSD. The problem she was having back in Raider and Havoc, where just she would come apart. She's gotten past that level of PTSD, but a special ops warrior shouldn't freeze. And she gets on that plane with Miranda and the Russian pilot, and she freezes. She can't think her way out of it. She can't react. She can't pull out a knife and, kill off the Russian and take over the plane. None of it. She's stuck in that place, and it's going to take her a couple books to crawl her way back in her head before she can resolve that. So it was a fascinating, depressing, frustrating, interesting challenge to work through this with Andy. Now, of course, Holly and Mike are going through this same story with a whole bunch of their own baggage. Um, Holly did not purge her past in Havoc completely. She still is very standoffish and keeping Mike at a distance. And she's trapped by her own defender nature. Everything has been, after the death of her brother, after being instrumental in the death of her brother, she goes full defender. That's why she's the muscle of the team. She will do anything to preserve the team. And she can't switch that off. But when Andy betrays the team, she can't hear any other option but to throw Andy off. So there's no gray area. She's a very black and white character. You're either in or you're out. And that's her defender nature. And she doesn't know what to do with Mike, because Mike's default mode is he's just Mr. Cool. He's on his even keel and he's going along and he's just living his life and having fun sleeping in Holly's bed. And Andy understands this, and we see Andy and Holly having it out at the radar installation twice, because the first time Andy, who's in love with Miranda, is calling Holly on her own shit and says, look, you've got to make a choice. Look at, you're missing things and it's not going to last. This is not going to last unless you change something. And then, of course, that all gets flipped when Andy makes the mistake. But that's the baggage that these two characters are still warring with, and that they're still going to be warring with for a couple more books, just so you know. And the last question I get surprised me. Where did Meg the dog come from? It's not the dog in Lightning. In Lightning, there's a naval commander who, by supporting a Kickstarter, bought the character, being a character within the book. And she had this cute little dog for years. And so I wrote the dog in as sort of her monitor people's emotions. A it's just a cute little side thing, this little dog. I didn't even think about that when I was writing this book, even though it's only a couple books later. It's separated by at least a year, maybe more. So I came up with the idea of an autism therapy dog that would help Miranda. And so this is again a bonus story scene, but it's they can't figure out what else to do to help Miranda. Holly and Mike are stuck and nobody knows how to help Miranda, and they finally give her a dog. She's scared to death of dogs. Even in Lightning, she has a real hard time with this little dog. Um, and I actually know somebody who used to go into school systems with her, I think they were Pekingese, to help people get over a fear of dogs. And the dogs were trained to be calm. They were trained to not yap. They were trained to sit. And they would start at opposite ends of a 50-foot hallway with the dog sitting in the hallway on a leash and the student trying to stand in the hallway without crying because the dog was so close, and then move a foot closer. And it would take weeks or months to get to the point where they could stand next to the dog and finally touch the dog. Um, so it was that kind of therapy dog I was looking for. The But the dog also had to be able to keep up with Miranda doing her job. So I didn't want it to be a big dog because that would freak her out. But I didn't want it to be a cute little pocket dog. So I found one, the Glenavon Terrier, that's a real sturdy working dog, used to spending all day out on the farm, but it's also very calm by its nature. So it's also perfectly happy to sit on the couch with you. So squeezing Miranda, I got to find this cute dog to plug in there that had nothing to do with the lightning dog that was in Lightning. Anyway, that's the story to that. Thanks for joining me for the 5 questions. Visit my website, join the newsletter, learn about the books. There are bonus scenes, all the links that I've talked about, the scenes, they're linked there. I also have recipes from the book, maps. So go and explore. Thanks for watching. Bye.